John especially wanted to be here to receive the high honor that you so carefully bestowed on him this evening. He asked me to join you in his place and to read a short statement from him to all of you. To my dear and cherished friends, and to my worthy adversaries, it breaks my heart that I cannot be with you tonight. But as Cindy has no doubt told you, after many public consultations and polite disagreements with our doctors, I was strongly advised not to come to Munich. As you all know, I never second-guess the experts. I want to thank Joe Biden, Wolfgang Ischinger, and all of my friends in Munich for honoring me with the award named for a man who was my hero, a visionary, an inspiration to us all, and to the reason we are all here, Ewald von Kleist. Of all my many adventures and remembrances, Munich always stands out. I think about my days as a young Navy captain escorting Senator John Tower and his colleagues to this conference, and watching as they helped steer the transatlantic alliance through the headiest days of the Cold War. I think about being with Joe Biden and Bill Cohen. By the way, Bill Cohen was the best man in our wedding. Bill Cohen and so many others who, as we expanded NATO and took it to war in the Balkans. And I will always remember drinking schnapps with Joe Lieberman and later Sheldon Whitehouse. I offer these reflections not to bask in sentiment, but because it raises a deeper question. Why do we come to Munich? Yes, it is for fun and friendships and fond memories. But that is not why Ewald von Kleist first brought the Western world together here 5 decades ago, and why we come back year after year. The real reason we come to Munich is because we believe that certain values should order our world, that the peace and prosperity we cherish depend on the survival and success of those values, and that they are worth the fighting for. We come to Munich because we want to live in a world where truth transcends falsehood, sovereignty triumphs over subjugation, justice reigns over oppression, freedom overcomes tyranny, where power is transformed into legitimacy, and the fate of people and nations is determined by the rule of law and not the whim of rulers. We come to Munich because we know, and we can never afford to forget, that the alternative to a world ordered by these values is a dark and cruel place, where laws and rules and rights count for nothing, and selfish brute force trumps all. But put simply, we come to Munich because sustaining our vision of world order, though it requires wealth and power and realism, is not merely a material struggle. It's a moral struggle. It's about the values that will govern our world. That is why we are allies. That is why we have stood by each other and sacrificed for each other and invested in our common defense, and why we must continue to do so. My friends, if there is a benefit that comes from advanced age, it is the sense of perspective it affords. I have been blessed with an extraordinary life. I have experienced my share of hardship and suffering and conflict. But there is no question that the world I have had the good fortune to live in is more peaceful, more prosperous, and more filled with love and happiness and beauty and the values we all cherish than the world my father and grandfather knew. My youngest children have only read about the Berlin Wall. Their world was never divided by it. Their lives weren't affected by its shadow. But for those of us born before the Cold War or during the Cold War, that blessing was the achievement of a, quote, long and twilight struggle. I remember the enormous sacrifice it entailed, the many brave souls, some of whom were my friends, that gave their lives to secure it. I remember a span of more than half a century when, for all our differences, Americans maintained a bipartisan commitment to the freedom and security of our allies. All together with our allies, we kept faith with those on the other side of those walls that divided the oppressed from the free. We were confident they wanted the same things we did: freedom, equal justice, the rule of law, a fair chance to prosper by their own industry and talents. We kept the faith and we prevailed. This is our greatest inheritance, and it did not happen by accident. It was born of imagination and resolve and good service, much of it rendered every year here in Munich. I have endeavored to do my small part to defend the values we hold dear, and I can assure you that the rewards I have derived from this service are far greater than the contribution I have made. I find myself more and more returning to the words of Marilyn Robinson. It has seemed to me sometimes as though the Lord breathes on the poor gray ember of creation, and it turns to radiance for a moment, a year, or a span of life. Whatever your turn your eyes and the world can shine, it shines for transfiguration. You don't have to bring a thing to it except a little willingness to see. That is, to acknowledge that there is more beauty than our eyes can bear, that precious things have been put into our hands, and to do nothing more than to honor them would do great harm. I am counting on all of you as my friends to honor the precious, beautiful things that are still entrusted in our care. I am counting on you to be brave. I am counting on you to be useful. I am counting on you to keep your faith and never give up, though the true radiance of our world may at times seem obscured. Though we will never suffer adversity and setbacks and misfortune, never ever stop fighting for all that is good and just and decent, our world and each other. Thank you.